This is Beyond the Resume, the podcast that brings you the stories, advice, and insights behind some of the most successful people in real estate. Beyond the Resume is brought to you by Jackson Lucas Executive Search, the industry leader in human capital solutions. Here is Chris Papa and Lisa Flicker.
Paul Weissman, welcome to the podcast. You're at Lument, not Lumen. You're
Correct.
the Senior Managing Director, Head of Affordable Housing Production at Lument. I know you're a bigwig. You've got a big speech at AHF Live. I remember that. Can you tell the world about Lument and what you do there?
Sure. Lument is a primarily multifamily commercial real estate lender. We have licenses to do Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and FHA lending. My role is to focus on affordable housing as well as the FHA business as a whole on the multifamily side. And we are actually a combination of several lenders that were all acquired by our parent company, Oryx, over the past 16, 17 years now. The various legacy lenders are Red Capital, Lancaster Pollard, and Hunt Real Estate Capital. And Hunt had been CharterMac and Centerline, obviously. So there's a big legacy of affordable housing in particular within those organizations.
And you were at Hunt, right? You were at Hunt before this?
I was at Hunt, yeah. So about 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago, we were acquired by Oryx, and sort of at that point in time, it became apparent that maybe having one name for all those different entities would be a good idea. A bunch of people got together and went through a naming exercise, and we came up with Lument. And I want to say it was right before Severance came out. So I don't know exactly what the timeline was for that.
But you were there first. Whatever it was.
I'm going to stick with that. I don't know if it's accurate, but it's probably true.
But whenever I watch a show, I think of you.
Great.
You're the Christopher Walken character.
So, Paul, take us back a little bit to a lot of people who listen to this podcast are students, people thinking about entering real estate, looking for kind of career advice. I noticed you got a JD. I noticed you have an MBA. What did young Paul want to do, and how did that kind of pivot?
Well, so I think I have to go before the professional degrees. I was in high school. I was a foreign exchange student. I lived in France for my junior year of high school.
That is so cool.
When I got to college, I decided to sort of keep up with foreign language study. And so I majored in foreign languages. And my parents had kind of encouraged me to just study whatever I was interested in. I got to spend a semester in what was at the time the Soviet Union in the Russian Far East, kind of close to the Sea of Japan. Really unusual place to go at that point in time. Glasnost and Perestroika had just begun around that time. So there were a lot of changes happening, and I continued that path. I graduated. I didn't really have any idea what kind of jobs would be available for somebody with those types of abilities. So I moved to Asia, and I taught English in Taiwan for about a year.
Wow.
And it was over that period of time that I started thinking, hey, I should probably grow up at some point. And came back to the States, applied to law school. And after a year in law school, I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is exactly what I want to do. So I applied to the business school and kind of got both degrees at the same time. And that sort of was a strange progression, really, to get me to that point in time. And came out of school and started applying for jobs. And I was hired as in-house counsel with a real estate development firm that had a small group that was doing some affordable housing. And while we were there, we acquired a tax credit syndication firm.
Wow, cool.
I moved out to California, started working for them, and I was involved in a number of transactions involving tax-exempt bonds and fairly complex structured financing. And that's sort of how I ended up in the affordable housing space. And I've gone on to do a lot of tax-exempt bond transactions. I've originated on the tax credit equity side for a period of time. And that's sort of how my career progressed. It's a very, I think, unusual path. And I think when I talk to people who are interested in the business, I do feel like it's really useful to have people that are interested in things other than just housing. I think there tends to be, it's a little bit like sports in a way. There tends to be maybe over concentration in a specific area. So like I hear about the 8-year-olds that have private batting coaches and play 100 baseball games a year. And I wonder if it wouldn't be better to participate in a bunch of different sports and kind of get a broader sense of things. And I sort of feel that way about a lot of things in life. It's worthwhile to have interests outside of the specific professional things that you're engaged in. And frankly, on the sales side, that's extremely useful because it enables you to have interesting conversations with the people that you're working with. And many of them, I mean, in the affordable housing world, there are a lot of interesting characters that have really unusual backgrounds that sort of drove them to enter into this area of focus. And so listening to what's interesting to them is extremely beneficial and useful. And I sort of feel like those early experiences in my life of living
Right.
with me, talking to people who are very different from me, helped me learn to listen better to other people.
I think that, I mean, Lisa and I, our business is relationship business, and we have to know what we're talking about, but we, and it's, we talk about, people don't want to talk to us for an hour about work. They want to talk about what's happening in their life. Right. So what, like, I know we all kind of know what's going on here, but like, pretend like someone's like in college and they want to, like, what exactly, where do you fit into the life cycle of getting buying or developing a property?
Sorry, can you rephrase the question? I'm not sure.
Like, where do you fit into the cycle of like, if someone's like, you know what I mean? There's like a whole process and a gazillion steps.
Yeah. So I think that for many lenders, we come a little bit later in the process. So let's just start with somebody who has an idea and they want to build a project, right? And so they go out, maybe they buy some land. They then get that land entitled. If it wasn't already set up to be multifamily housing, then they go to the state and seek various forms of subsidy to build the affordable housing project. Usually at the time that someone is looking to make an application for bonds or credits, they need letters of interest from lenders and tax credit investors. And so that might be the first time we're likely to see a deal or from someone who's going to develop it. That said, we have a lot of relationships with folks, and oftentimes they might just be sort of at the very beginning of thinking about developing something, and they'll call us and they'll say, what kinds of programs are particularly interesting right now? What are you seeing? What kind of subordinate financing might be available in the state of South Dakota or whatever it might be? And we try to help them along the way as part of the services that we provide. In many ways, I feel like in affordable housing in particular, as a lender, we aren't really just processing a loan. A lot of times we act as consultants to our clients and make recommendations, who might be a tax credit investor that's interested in a particular area. What type of subordinate financing is available? Are there taxes? Are tax-exempt bonds oversubscribed in that state? Or,
right.
All of those types of things or questions that we get on a regular basis. And we kind of do that to help people out because in some ways, providing a Fannie Mae loan, a Freddie Mac loan, an FHA loan, those are a little bit like commodities to some degree. I mean, but we provide services around that and expertise around that. And that's how we differentiate ourselves from other lenders.
And do you feel like the personality of somebody who thrives in an affordable housing company, wherever in this life cycle you are, is different from somebody who would succeed in a private equity firm or a bulge bracket bank or something?
So, I mean, I think that you certainly could thrive in both environments, but I think about affordable housing transactions in a lot of ways as like a complex puzzle. and you're trying to put all of the pieces together. And it's almost like a three-dimensional puzzle, and the pieces themselves continue to evolve and change. So you're constantly trying to make everything fit together to balance sources and uses, to get personalities that work. You have the various interests of the state, of the county, of the city, maybe council person in that town. Like, there's so many parties that seem to get involved. And I think for a number of people in real estate, and certainly a number of people who do other types of transactions, they don't like all of that uncertainty and the complexity around it. And so I think the people who succeed in this business sort of thrive in an environment where there's uncertainty and challenges, and you're constantly problem solving and looking for solutions.
Yeah. What's like hard skill sets are good that you need in order to be successful?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's important to have the basic sort of math skill set of, figuring out how the numbers all fit together. That's really important. But broader than that, I think you have to understand where the push and pull happen on transactions. So, looking at deals today and problems that you're seeing in deals today, it's sort of like, well, Congress just passed this law, and now you only need to have 25% of your deal financed with tax-exempt bonds in order to be eligible for credits on the whole transaction. What that means is a lot of deals will have much larger taxable components to their debt, and those taxable components typically cost more. And with this change, there's more tax credit allocation available. And so that additional supply of tax credits the demand isn't there for all of it. So you're seeing prices come down on tax credits. So you have all these tensions, and really it's like the same thing keeps happening over and over again. So 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, it was interest rates went up. And so now you had all these problems because interest rates went up. Today, it's, there's more taxable debt and tax credit pricing is softer. So how do we address those types of things? It's a moving board at all times. And so we're always just trying to solve those pieces. So it's important to say, all right, so your taxable piece is going to be larger. What can solve that? Is a Freddie Mac execution better with a large taxable tail, or maybe doing an FHA loan instead is a good option, or there might be recycled bonds available in that state. And can we go seek some recycled bonds and then not have to deal with the additional taxable piece? So it's really understanding all of the components of the deal and how you can sort of shore up a shortfall by addressing some of the others. Having a really good deal sense is critical to helping your clients solve.
It's very complex, right? It's like, so I can see why there's a hurdle, there's a barrier of entry of just knowing all this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it varies a lot state by state. So, overlay that and
Yeah.
And so you sort of have to enjoy that process of solving those problems and understanding the tensions in transactions. If you just want something straightforward where somebody shows you an NOI and you give them a loan, maybe the affordable housing world isn't for you. You can kind of just repeat that process over and over again. I mean, I think everyone's trying to do that to some degree. Like, can we have a deal team that works together and we do kind of the same execution on a regular basis? And earlier in my career, that was much more possible. Costs were lower. I like to say that, at the beginning of my career, this sort of the sources in a tax-exempt bond deal were typically your bonds and your tax credit equity. And now it's like your bonds, your tax credit equity, maybe some TIF financing, maybe subordinate debt from the state. Maybe you have state tax credits, 5 other things to sort of solve that problem. And one of the sort of more unfortunate things that I think is occurring right now is all of those additional layers result in additional cost. So it's like the dollar of state tax credits that you get might cost you 10 cents because you have additional legal costs, you have all these other components. And it's even worse when it's multiple layers of subordinate financing because those look very similar. And if it was consolidated, it would just be much cheaper to execute that way. But sort of everyone who's interested in providing you some subsidy wants a little something to give it to you. You know, it's like, well, I'd like to see 2 units at 35% of AMI. Okay, so now how do I deal with then I need a little bit more, or, all of those kinds of things. Just, it's like an iterative process to get to the answers.
And I think all of these things are, like, Chris, the barriers to entry have changed. It used to be you could move here to America and you'd become a landlord, with basically, you're the super in the building and you're the landlord and you can kind of build it up. And I feel like the sophistication that's come around a lot of these things has certainly made it an interesting.
Well, the industry's also gotten so much larger. You have very large financial institutions now that are sort of looking at the industry. Blackstone acquired this huge portfolio of deals from AIG and at a very large purchase price. And it's like, they're numbers that early in my career, I didn't really think would ever exist in the industry. And so it's interesting to see those players come in, and a lot of them want to execute at scale, which is very difficult in an industry like this one, where things just tend not to be alike. And transaction sizes can be quite small. Sometimes they get bigger, but it's sort of like, I'll have somebody come to me and say, we want to buy like $1 billion of tax credit deals. I'm like, do you know how many deals that might be? Like, how are you going to get to that kind of?
Right.
I don't think you recognize like the sort of man hours that it will require to get to that kind of a number.
Yeah, we get when we work with a lot of institutional investors, and they come to us because they know that we do a lot of work in affordable housing, and they'll be like, hey, we're looking to start this platform and we're looking to do this. Like, how do we do it? How do we set it up? And we're like, yeah, I'm like, just buy a company. Just buy a company already. Like, that's the easiest. Like, it's like, I mean, to expand rapidly and with a ton of money, it's like, it's different. You can't just force money down people's throats like you can do with like market rate stuff, right? It's just like, if you have tons of money, you can just buy everything, but you can't do that in affordable housing. So, but you have to really understand it.
Requires all these additional approvals, right? You need the state agency to approve it. It's just not, everything takes longer. And so it's interesting, like, people who are impatient often will struggle in this business.
Yeah, like traditional like private equity returns 3 to 5 years aren't necessarily going to work here. Shoot, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so I mean, somebody like who's listening to this and you're spitting out, so much.
I know. I begin to think
like
I was answering
overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Like how did you know any of this when you got into it?
Zero. Like, when I started my job, I didn't know what a low-income housing tax rate. Frankly, I didn't even know what a cap rate was. I remember being in a board meeting with all of these industry veterans talking about cap rates.
And
so many people. I would love to be on the other side of like the data surrounding, like, how long into your career do you Google or use some kind of a ChatGPT product to learn what cap rates are?
We'll say it is a lot easier to find out some of these answers today than it was during the early stages of my career. But, I started by going to a conference and kind of getting a low-income housing tax credit 101 briefing. But now you can Google tax credits 101, and there are a bunch of presentations that will pop up, videos you can watch, and you can begin to learn about them. And I think that a lot of times people will come up to me and they'll ask a question like, tell me how these deals work. And I'll try and do a brief explanation, and then they'll kind of go away, and then they'll come back and ask another question. And I do try to encourage people to do a little bit of learning on their own and then come back and ask questions. 'Cause it'll be a lot more fruitful discussion if you have a little bit of a base of knowledge. And I think those things are really not that hard to obtain. But, early in my career, it was a lot of trial and error, and it was a lot of talking to experts who were doing certain types of things. And kind of a lot of it is there is some common sense in it. At the end of the day, it's like it takes money to build a project. What are the ways you can get money? Okay, there's debt. There's, in a normal world, it's just regular equity. Here we use tax credit equity instead. How does that work? Oh, somebody invests in the property and they get this tax benefit from it. And that's how that works. And the program was relatively sort of in place by the time I started my career. But a lot of the people that I worked with, they had done real estate deals before the Tax Act of 1986, which is the one that created the low income housing tax credit. And that was like a massive change in the way that real estate worked when that law passed. Because before the 86 Tax Act, people could just depreciate. They could take depreciation off of their regular income. And that was like a huge driver of doctors, lawyers, and airline pilots investing in multifamily housing. And I think people don't quite recognize the history of it, which is like the tax credit was created because people recognized it would lots of people would stop developing multifamily housing because they wouldn't get the kinds of returns on the tax benefit that they were getting before 1986.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bookshelf right here, and like, I have a book that explains real estate investing 101, all the definitions. I have like the history of affordable housing, all the definitions. It's like, I had to read that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's very helpful. I was like, oh my God, like, it's not that complicated, actually. Once I kind of read into it a little bit, it's just a lot of parts that it's like speaking a language, which is learning a new language, essentially.
Yeah, I worry about jargon when I talk to civilians. I know that happens. And
how many civilians do you talk to?
I avoid it.
Oh, man.
But it's funny, in law school, like when you're a first-year law student, you're all hanging out together and you all start talking about the various terms that you're learning in law school. And like, if an outsider walks in, what are these people? Is this a foreign language these people are talking? What is going on?
Right.
Affordable housing is the same thing.
Yeah. And sorry, Lisa, but so you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, I mean, I met you. I remember, I don't know. I was rushing our council, like the fraternity.
See a good pledge.
I was pledging. I sat between you and Sarah Garland.
Yeah, he was running around getting people drinks.
I rushed another council just to check it out, and I wasn't into it. And this was one topic I was more interested in, actually. And I sat between you guys, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. Like, these people are funny, personality. Everyone was kind of helpful. Like, it was, anyway, so it was great. So thank you for that. Was that, like, are you big into, I know you got to get out there and like spread the love because you're the big wig at Lument, but do you encourage folks to get out and go to these different events and some people just want to sit behind their computer and learn everything?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it depends on the person, but I do encourage people to get out in the world and experience these things. One of the this can happen at your desk too, but one of the more gratifying experiences I had early in my career was I was involved in financing a mid-rise building, and it was like a 8-story building in just adjacent to downtown Denver. And my office at the time looked out over the site. And so over the course of, 14 months, I got to watch the building go up, and the opportunity to go see that building, the opportunity to see the impact on people's lives that it had was really gratifying. And I think people forget what the value of what we do really is if they don't get out and see these properties. More recently, we're involved in a large RAD transaction with the New York City Housing Authority. I saw the project before they began the renovation. It was sad to see how run down it had become, but to come back later and see the transformation of the property just was really amazing. And it's, I think, what makes what we do so fun and interesting. And I think that people in the industry have that mission in the back of their heads a lot of times. I mean, Sarah and I are direct competitors. We fight to win deals from one another, but we're also very good friends, and we're also happy to see the transactions get done because they matter. They matter to a lot of people. And so I think it's a more collegial environment in the affordable housing space than you would find in the market.
And that's why you like that council so much, Chris.
It is. I love it.
Right. Because everybody's helping each other. And that is
Paul was so welcoming
dream.
to me. He was like, "You're not some schmo." He was like, we were just sitting. It was great.
You don't know what I was thinking.
Well, I don't know what you're thinking, Paul. What is it? Intentions are the road to whatever. Like, it's all about action. You acted away. You don't want to know what I'm thinking all the time.
I sort of faked it till I made it, right?
Act your way into right thinking. Act your way into right thinking.
Yeah. No, there's something very real about that. Like, you might be having a bad day, and if you smile and you're nice to people, it starts to improve.
Yeah.
I'm 100% a believer in that. So, Paul, are you, I think everybody in the world is kind of thinking about AI. Not that many people are like, I'm just wondering kind of what your thoughts are, if there's anything interesting that you've been implementing or thinking about, or AI related you want to discuss.
We certainly are thinking about it a lot. We're a little cautious in using it because we do have a fair amount of sensitive, personally identifiable information, to use the terminology. And so, we have to be cautious about what we're putting out into certainly a public AI environment. So we have a lot of restrictions in terms of those types of things. But I do think that there are components of our work product that could be done more efficiently and enhanced using AI tools. And so that's really kind of where we're headed, I think, to a large degree. We have to be careful that we don't use it to create longer, descriptions of everything. The idea is to make things simpler and not more complicated. And then obviously accuracy is important. We have to be careful that we're not generating information that is false. But, when we do a loan, we get an engineering report, we get an environmental report, we get an appraisal, and then we read those and summarize them. Some of that work could certainly be handled by AI engines, and it's something that we're looking at, and I'm sure a lot of lenders are as well. The idea is to be able to be more efficient. And I think just today there was an article about Freddie Mac focusing on efficiency, Fannie Mae focusing on efficiency. They have the ability to do more lending in the multifamily housing space this coming year. And the only way they can get there is by being able to do a little bit more with the same people that they have, and using tools like AI to achieve that is something that I think everybody's going to be focused on in the coming years.
Yeah, it's
I'm kind of against the AI making decisions, but summarizing information.
Right.
Paul, you mentioned some rad deals in New York City. Are you ready for the raddest segment of the podcast? Because you just sat on the hot seat. Oh!
Okay, the hot seat. Great. I actually was thinking maybe I should describe what rad is, but
no, we don't even care. No,
exactly.
Right.
This is the raddest. And my favorite part is when Chris says the hot seat. And my least favorite thing is when Chris can't make the podcast and I have to do it. So
you're adding hot seat delivery.
Exactly.
All right,
one thing. That's it.
What do you got for me?
So first thing, easy. Any books or podcasts that you might enjoy, listen to, want to share with the audience?
Yeah. So I think on the books, I'll do one that's kind of semi-work related and one that is not. When my son was an undergrad, I was in the bookstore at his college, and I just happened upon a book called High Rise Stories. And they're stories told by residents of public housing in the Chicago housing projects before they were all demolished. So it was really interesting. As people may or may not know, many of there were large swaths of Chicago sort of blanketed with high-rise buildings that were public housing, poverty concentrated in specific areas. And over time, the buildings deteriorated. There wasn't sufficient public investment in them to maintain them, but also they became areas with a lot of crime. And certainly people talked about those feelings of fear because of the crime that existed in those communities towards the end of their life cycles. But they also had tremendous nostalgia and a sense of loss of the community that they had within those buildings. So lots of friends, lots of people who kind of lived in the apartment next door or down, a couple floors down, that were almost like family, and how people got along, took care of themselves. And a lot of those ties kind of blew up with the destruction of those buildings, and people kind of scattered all over the city, and many felt a tremendous sense of loss of that community that they had. And I think it was particularly poignant for me thinking about how, some of the things that we do to renovate projects. And this was kind of in the Hope 6 era, which was a program to deconcentrate poverty, redevelop those areas with mixed income. And so like how that impacts the fabric of those communities is something that, should consider. I'm not suggesting that it would have been ideal to leave those projects in the condition that they were and people living in those environments that they were living in. But I don't know the degree to which, people thought about how that would impact their lives in.
Right. Yeah. It's their communities.
Yeah.
It's people's communities.
Yeah. Just hearing from the resident side of things is something that, as a lender, I don't see quite as much. And so I think that was really interesting and to read about.
Yeah.
On the other book that I read recently, it's I like his books a lot. Eric Larson, who wrote The Devil in the White City. I read The Splendid and the Vile this year, which was about basically Churchill's first year in power during the Blitz, and it's a very sort of personal description of what Churchill is going through and his family and the suffering of the people in London as bombers come over and destroy buildings. And it's a tale of kind of resolve and resilience. And it's really interesting, I think, to think about how people are motivated. And again, this is kind of in a similar vein, like feeling a sense of community. We're in this together. We're all working to survive. And the way Churchill inspired them to persevere through all this. But he was such an interesting historical figure. And I don't know that I really recognized how emotional he was, but it talked about him going through the streets of London, seeing just, buildings that had been destroyed and just openly weeping in front of all these people. And I think that humanity really inspired a lot of people. They felt like he really cared and it was important to them. He was asking them to endure, but he knew what it cost them, and it was clear that he knew what it cost them.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
No, me neither.
I'm always curious. I mean, you're a busy guy. You got a big job. You got kids. Like travel. Like, what do you do, like to stay kind of present and grounded in your life? Do you just wake up and roll out of bed and you're all good? Like, what do you?
So it's funny. I feel like I've been trying to solve that problem a little bit over the last 5 years. My kids are now out of the house, and so I'm kind of I have a little bit more time to sort of think on my own, and so I went through a phase of trying to do a little meditation, which I really enjoyed and kind of got away from. I started, I'm in my now. I started trying to do things that were more healthy. I trained for and did a couple Olympic distance triathlons over the years. And I feel like that just any kind of exercise helps your mind in the same way that the meditation did in some ways, especially swimming for some reason, because you're kind of left alone with your thoughts and you just have the water and there's not, I mean, you can kind of listen to music if you get the right stuff, but
I have those headphones and I don't know how to figure out how to load the music on it.
right. Yeah, exactly. So
The big reveal was like Bluetooth doesn't work underwater.
yeah, right. That's the problem.
In our show notes,
Good.
we'll see some pictures of you in your wetsuit.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying in our show notes, we'll put some pictures of you in your wetsuit.
Yeah, right. Great. That'd be fantastic. You get 0 views, I will assure you. Yeah, so I mean, some of those things are things that I've been focused on. So it's interesting. Like I do, you asked about books. I tend not to read a lot of stuff that is business oriented, or it's kind of like, I already spend a huge amount of mental energy in my time thinking about those kinds of things. And so I kind of like to, I don't know if it's age or what, I've gotten very like focused on nostalgic type things. Like a few years ago, I started watching the TV show The Americans.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
The way it presents America during the Cold War was like such a throwback to my childhood. I really loved the series for that reason.
Great show.
That was a great show. So obviously you've hired a tremendous amount of people in your lifetime. By the time a candidate gets to you, I assume that their credentials are vetted. But is there anything that you look for, like other than like that they can do Excel or something? Like, are there any like soft skills that you look for when you're hiring?
I mean, I'm interested in people who are interesting, probably more than anything else. So I like to hear the stories about their lives and how they've come, what sort of causes them to think a certain way, what their values are. I mean, it's easy to come into an interview and say, oh, I can do all kinds of Excel models and I know all these kinds of things, but I'm sort of looking for the human element, if you will, and people skills. Because at the end of the day, we're going to spend a lot of time working together, and it's important to like each other, and want to help each other succeed.
I feel the same way. Yeah, I want interesting people. I want people with different backgrounds and different ways of thinking. And I mean, if you looked at our org chart, you wouldn't, or our website, you wouldn't see that. But we all have very interesting backgrounds. Trust me. And that's one of the things I try to vet. But Paul, seriously, you've been a super nice guy to me. I really appreciate you welcoming me to this world, and it's great to get to know you better. I love your background. Actually, I forgot one question. There's the myth that we do this alone, that, the self-made person, but like, who have your mentors been throughout your career and your life?
That's a good question. It's funny. I that idea, the pull yourself up from your bootstraps idea, when I hear people talk about that in a way that doesn't acknowledge the people that have helped them get to where they are, I find that very off-putting. One of the guy that hired me in my first job, it was general counsel at Simpson Housing when I started, and he really gave me a lot of time to learn about this business. And he was very good about, I remember one day he saw me like making a bunch of copies because we were late with something and we had to get it in. I felt like I was stepping up, helping the team out, and he came over to me and said, look, we didn't hire you to do that. Like, that's not what you should be doing. I would rather see you like staring out the window, because you're going to be thinking about this business and how to grow this business. And it's something that has really stuck with me over the years, to not get too bogged down in busy work and remember, like, where can I add value to the company? What can I do that is most beneficial? He recently passed away this year, but he was a tremendous influence on me. His name was Tim Roble. And then later in my career, I went to work for an investment bank. It was part of the lending group at GMAC called Lument and Associates. And there are a number of people there that were tremendous mentors to me. Brad James, Larry Dale, Jim Hahn, Scott Barker. They were all sort of very early founders of the company that had then been acquired. Larry was involved in the creation of the Fannie Mae DUS program at Fannie Mae, and they all were so generous with their time and helping me learn about the business, helping me be better at presenting. They put me very early on a panel. I think it was the first AHF Live conference that they ever held in Chicago. And I was sitting there. It was a small room back then. But we were talking about bond private placements all the way back then. I don't know, it was probably 2002, 2003, something like that.
It's awesome, man. Get the new guy up there. I recently learned that's how Martin Luther King got to be the president, or like the face of that movement, the Poor People's or whatever, because like he was the new guy making copies, and they're like, who should be our voice? They're like, get the new guy out there. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I have a very funny thing we do with our team when we have a new person start. We have them sing a little song for us.
Well, we asked them to sing.
That's where you're going with this interview. I think we might.
We're not going to ask you to sing. Don't worry. Although we did have a guest who played the piano for us once.
Oh, nice.
We do ask every new person to do it, and we try to see who actually does it. And there's been a couple. Most people say no.
Oh yeah, they're too self-conscious to do the singing.
Yeah. Well, it's not just Luis and I. It's like with
really
20 other people. It's 20 other people on the call.
Right. It's not just the two
her
of
and
us.
I. It's 20 other people.
For us.
And now Dave.
Well, Paul, thanks for coming on, man. I'm really happy that we did this, and I look forward to seeing you, hopefully in Nashville.
Yeah, I'm sure we will see one another then.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Resume, a Jackson Lucas podcast where we take a deep dive into the career journeys of some of the top minds in real estate and equip you with the knowledge to move forward in your path towards the success you've envisioned. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond the Resume. We're grateful for your support. All episodes of Beyond the Resume are brought to you by Jackson Lucas, building inclusive and diverse businesses through talent acquisition. Visit us at jacksonlucas.com